411 astrology subscribers. I accidentally pushed this through. I was about to go live and then I was gonna give it 5 minutes. I wasn't able to put the cover of the book on the thumbnail but in the playback. So again, sometimes it takes a moment to kick in. So hey there, all my rotation 411 astrology subscribers. We're gonna try to finish up lecture 1. If you want to see the intro of this book, the outer planets and their cycles, check out the playlist. It's in the description, and after we are live, I'll pin it in the comments as well. But for now, it's the first link in the description box if you want to start at the beginning. It has the intro, and then we have the first day we had to split into 2, so there's lecture 1 part 1 and 2 from the first day, and then yesterday we did lecture 1 part 3, and so hopefully finished up today. There's about 10 pages left. I went through a long intro yesterday, and my microphone wasn't working right, so it sounded like I was underwater. But there was a lot of valuable information in there that I really wanted to tell you guys that I reflected on from, parts 1 and 2 of lecture 1. So if you can either skip to minute 17 on part 3 of lecture 1, and then it'll be clear, and I kind of do a quick review of what I was going on about for 17 minutes. Guys, you could try to muddle through it. It's kind of, this audio wasn't great. So hopefully somebody will come in and join me and clarify that the audio is good. But for those of you that have been following along, I had an issue where, I have the whole setup on. It takes a lot more because then I have to hook cameras to the computer, etc. So I've been just doing it on my iPhone so that we can get it out quickly. And the issue is when I would get a call, that's why we had to do part 1 and 2 today. It's actually just like part 1, but I would get a call and all of a sudden it would mute me. And then yesterday I tried to use my backup phone and I had the calls enabled on it as well. So I turned those off on. So if I get a phone call, it should only go through to my primary phone. There shouldn't be any issues with audio today. I have the hardwire mic plugged in, which should be the most reliable. Hopefully it's in a position that's not obstructed. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I usually try to chat a little bit before I start reading verbatim, but it's pretty juicy, and I do stop and pause it as a book study to kind of, this was written in 1982 based on lectures in 1980 in England. So I do stop and reflect on, current events and such. So we had ended off yesterday with Uranus is the first god in Greek mythology. I'm just going to sort of reread that to pull us back into it. But maybe I'll get around, or one of you can get around to doing a timestamp if you want to skip over that and just jump in from part 3. So Uranus is the first god in Greek myth, the heavenly father who engenders the universe. He emerges from the womb of Gaia, who is mother of chaos. And I was talking about chaos and order a bit yesterday before we got to this part. And this is good too because we're finally getting into the planets. I know that in the next 10 pages, the last part of lecture 1, she at least covers Saturn and Pluto as well. So Uranus belongs to the air, to the sky. He is a sky god. He is a god of ideas and flying wings of thought. In esoteric circles, this is sometimes called the divine mind. Plato wrote about the divine ideas upon which all worldly formed. It is as though something exists before the universe is formed, which is the idea of the universe. So Uranus has something to do with a pattern, an ordering force which does not yet have body. And I like to think of Uranus as sort of air or electricity. It's a bit erratic and unpredictable. Adam and Eve, Mr. and Mrs. I love, the Bible has a lot of mythology in it as well. So definitely I refer to Adam and Eve once in a while. Exactly what you're referring to here. Thank you, DC24. I appreciate that. Thanks for following along since, I guess, day 1, if you were the 10th one. Yeah, I know. I hate saying this. It was funny because my boyfriend will sit here and listen to me do videos. And while he's not home right now, he's at work. But he'll be like, why do you say Uranus? Like if you guys watch like Mars Square Uranus video that I did on the hard aspects. So why are you saying Uranus? Why are you saying, I'll say Uranus or Uranus? And because I read words and I don't always know how to pronounce them. I have Mercury and Pisces square Uranus. So he's like, why are you doing that? And he's like, it's Venus. And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm up, so kind of, skip forward. I'm upstairs and Jeopardy's on the TV. And all of a sudden I hear Jeopardy say, what is a planet that school grade kids think has a funny name? And they're like, what is Uranus? And I'm just like, and it was like right around the same time. So I'm trying to be more proper and say Uranus, even though it makes me feel like a third grader, which is kind of, I really don't like gross humor. I did a theater class and the theater teacher said, you know, anytime you can insert gross humor, like you know, people, I don't even know the proper term for, you know, jokes about excreting things and stuff, that will always get a laugh. And I don't know, I was raised with a Capricorn IC, so those things aren't funny, you know. So I guess I just was conditioned out of that. Anyone who thinks it's funny, I just don't usually laugh at it. What was the quick thing I thought I had on that really quick? I forgot. All right. Hi, Damien. Okay, give me 1 second, you guys. How to clear my throat. So I tried to put on this, my coffee place gave me a sticker today, like because it's Halloween, happy Halloween for those of you that celebrate, or what is it? Sam Hain. All right. Sam Hain. I think it's Sam Hain is I have the Halloween oracle. I should pull that out. I did do it 1 year, but yeah, it got kind of messed up when I just stuck it on my face. I have a little Red Riding queued up, a little Red Riding Hood one, because I have this big red coat. So, but I don't even know if I'm doing anything. Hey, Caleb. Hi, Damien. Okay, so let's get back to this. So, he is a god of ideas and flies on the wings of thought. Okay. So, Uranus has something to do with a pattern, an ordering force which does not yet have body. Uranus comes to a bad end in myth because he's castrated by his spouse. His severed genitals fall into the ocean. Okay, I lost my spot now. Okay, which is fertilized by his seed, and out of the foam springs Aphrodite, the goddess. Uranus is a fertility god, but not in an earthly sense. He fertilizes with creative thought, with spirit. I think we can see his footsteps in history whenever a great new creative idea erupts in the collective. Around the discovery of Uranus, the idea of democracy and freedom and the freedom of the individual was a powerful force that changed society. We're talking about that a little so far, about how, you know, 500 years ago we weren't in culture like Western culture now, so having an identity of your own was very rare. But now with like social media and everything, we're especially Western civilized countries are very individualist, intercultural communications, and they talked about that, how other countries are more collective, and we talk about the collective a lot in tarot and all of that, and we were talking about that yesterday, like the collective unconscious, right, versus the personal subconscious. But anyways, if you want to check that out, check out part 3 of like one, and the playlist is in the description below. So, okay, I think we can see his footsteps in history every time an idea. Around the time of the discovery of Uranus, the idea of democracy and the freedom of the individual was a powerful force that changed society. During the French Revolution, the justification of the Reign of Terror was the cry of liberty, equality, fraternity. The French monarchy was deposed in the name of, and the idea was a tremendous force which generated great changes in France. Ideas can be moving forces in the world just as powerful as economic pressures. They erupt from the collective and seize the minds of a people, and then there's nothing that can stop it, even attempts at suppression. So now we're going into where we left off yesterday. During the Italian Renaissance, another idea took hold of people, which caused enormous changes in society. This was the idea that man's nature. That may sound terribly simple, but it wasn't simple then. It was heresy. If man is God, then he doesn't need intermediaries to interpret God's will to him. He's capable of experiencing in his own contact with the divine. If he doesn't need intermediaries, then he doesn't need the church for his salvation. And this is interesting because a lot of non-denominational Christians say, you need to have a personal relationship with God. But then they say, you see yourself as God. So there's a lot of overlap and crossover in these ideas, right? That's why, you can't really say it's one way or the other. But anyways, he doesn't need the church for his salvation, so he also doesn't need priests because he can straight to God and pray, right? He might need it as a fellowship or an inspiration, but he isn't dependent upon it for his experience of grace. That idea contained immense power, men to explore other philosophies and gods without fear of being tainted. It spawned the creative flowering which we called the Renaissance. It restored dignity to man, who was no longer a mere worm stained by original sin, who had to live his life concealed in fear. Thanks, Avis. I'm glad you're following along. Okay. Pico della Mirandola's oration to man begins, quote, "What a great miracle is man. He partakes of the nature of both gods and daemons," end quote. Daemons is also kind of spin off of demons, but it can be angels. And I believe in like the Muslim culture, well, no, those are jinns. My friend who had background told me about jinns. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, okay. This kind of eruption of a powerful idea which seizes men's imaginations is what I associate with Uranus. The trouble with these ideas is that they come from the heavenly world, and so they are usually advanced for the world at the time. Uranus also rules technology as well. I'll just throw that in there. Maybe we'll get into it. The divine dignity of man, which captured the creative minds of the Renaissance, was a little too much to swallow, and so it was due because Uranian ideas are inevitably too far ahead of the culture which breeds them. If an idea suddenly bursts into being in the outer world, it has to travel up from the depths, and it's colored by the sign through which Uranus is passing. So right now, where is Uranus, you guys? Pluto just went into Aquarius, but retrograding in Capricorn, and that's going to be happening for 20 years after he's done retrograding, which I think is only through like the end of the year. And so I always think of that because Uranus is what rules Aquarius. So Pluto being in Aquarius, going to be a very Uranian flavored Pluto. But let me go to divinetimingdatabase.com. I should have brought my iPad over here, but I'm going to go to divinetimingdatabase.com and just see where the planet is sky right now. I love it because I have all this software and everything. But if I just want to look really quick, I just go to, thought it was up at the top. So I'll go to Compatibility Report, and then it will say the sky right now in the menu. And so this is universal time on Knoll Island. Right now, Uranus is at the end of Taurus. He's been there for a while. Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I just wanted to get it quickly so I didn't have to over myself. Bye, Caleb. Have a very happy Halloween. Okay. So right now we have a Taurus flavored Uranus, which is very foreign, where to Aquarius. So it's a very earthy placement for Uranus to be right now. But anyways, so it says it's colored by the sign through which Uranus is passing. So right now a lot of ideas are going to be more Taurian, more financially based. It's creativity, especially in music, the voice creativity in finance, because the second house rules beauty, food. So there might be a lot of like culinary innovation now that are happening with Uranus and Taurus. All right. So anyways, okay. The voice is the second house, and money, finances, daily, your income, your personal income. Okay. And your family in which you come. So the fourth house is kind of that as well. But anyway, that's more Vedic, that the second house represents your roots, but not too far of the culture which breeds them. That sign represents, it's called the sign through which Uranus is passing. That sign represents the sphere of life which will be changed or transformed by the new idea. A few people will become its mouthpieces, and it's work like yeast within this society. But it will take a very long time before the forms of the world can be altered enough to accommodate it. Or you might say that it will take a very long time before individual people are capable of integrating it into their lives without some distortions. Jung thought it took around 80 years for some new content emerging from the collective unconscious to work its way through the different levels of society. He was making an intuitive assessment, since of course there's no way we can measure this. But this time span he gives is roughly the time it takes Uranus to return to any given sign. Uranus cycle, as I said, is 84 years. So I guess in astrology terms, kind of if what we're confirming in astrology, what young is that if Uranus is in Taurus right now, whatever the cooks are cooking up in the kitchen, it's going to take 80 years when Uranus is in Taurus again for a society to go, oh yeah, that was a great invention 80 years ago. We do that all the time now, something like that. It's the prophets and visionaries and artists who seem to catch the new idea, and it could also be again the voice as well. A lot of actually, how long has he been there now? A lot of, the last about speaking your truth and, having a voice. And that's very second house Taurus stuff. And then it's all been through like technology and media, which is Uranus. That rules networks, social networks, TV networks, radio networks. Okay. Anything that travels through the air, Wi-Fi networks. Okay. Because Uranus rules Aquarius, which is an air sign. All right. It's the prophets and visionaries and artists who seem to catch the new idea while it's still boiling and bubbling in the depth. Eventually, it becomes something popular among the mass of people, but usually by that time, they burned the pit at the stake or ruined him. Then they say, quote, "We have a wonderful new idea. Why don't we make it a set of laws which incorporate? Then they give honor to the handful of Uranian people who first had the idea, basically, even though it was originally heretical. The problem of Uranus in myth is that Saturn, Kronos, castrates him. Saturn is who, Kronos is Saturn, basically. Saturn is, okay, anyway, I don't know how to put it right now. It's only much later that he's regenerated as Aphrodite and translated creative and harmonious, which the world likes. We can go back to our map of the mountains and imagine a Uranian idea traveling slowly upward from the bedrock into the lives and minds of individual people. These pages are very thick, so this was the mountains. We went over this yesterday again, so it's in the playlist part. It'll be lecture 1, part 3, if you want to go over that more. 1 second. Oh, what did I do? I don't want to filter. Oh, okay. I just wanted to... I'm still getting over something, so I like to clear my throat periodically. All right. If you remember, I placed Saturn on the border between the individual and the collective. So Saturn is the first thing that the new idea hits on its way upward and outward into the world. That's where they start putting, the rules and regulations. Saturn is the boundary which separates me from you. So the people who will feel the rush upward of these new movements and ideas are, I think, the people who have Saturn and Uranus in strong aspect in the birth chart. So, and also that would include Capricorns who are Saturn ruled and Aquarians who are Saturn and Uranus ruled, okay? But again, also those of you who have heavy Saturn and Uranus in your chart. I think this group of people, or Capricorn and Aquarius, I think this group of people, particularly those who have something Uranus, get the itch first. They sense the need for change on an ideological level, and they become the willing or unwilling mouthpieces for the new idea before it becomes something acceptable in society. Okay, thanks, Caleb. Gonna be for Halloween, Caleb. What's up? Okay, a person who has Uranus in strong aspect to the sun or the moon or Mercury or Mars will also feel this rush of anticipation about the new idea, but it will affect that person. It will express itself through some personal area of life. If Uranus aspects Venus, for example, then the person will act out that new idea through his relationships without necessarily being aware of it as a quote-unquote new idea. The impact is very different when Uranus hits Saturn. So, yeah, to Venus is kind of like Uranus and Taurus, but Venus Libra ruled... I always mix the planet rulers. I say it like backwards, but Venus ruled... Libra. Yeah, Venus. Libra, which is ruled by Venus, would be more about relationships. So Uranus in Libra more, but a little bit with it being in Taurus. It affects our personal relationships as a collective this current time. Okay, but the impact is very different when Uranus hits Saturn. There's a jarring with that contact. I think it creates an urgency. I think because these are very slow moving planets, but Uranus is kind of sporadic and in and out. Oh yeah? Avis, Uranus is conjunct your sun, so I bet you have a lot of ideas sometimes. Maybe not all the time, but I bet you get a lot of great ideas. That would be my guess. And you're probably able to see them through as well with the sun there. Or I would have a good sense of humor as well, like very quick-witted. But, you're probably very quick-keen. Let me know what you think your sun conjunct Uranus means for you, okay? All right, So, and then I'll see if I can add to it. I think it creates an urgency. Something is knocking on the door very loudly and persistently, and if you don't listen, then it threatens to break the door down. And Saturn, because he's the form builder and is concerned with worldly issues, feels the necessity to do something practical idea. The moon in Uranus may simply feel very rebellious, and Mercury in Uranus may devote a lot of time to studying and thinking about the new thing. But Saturn must build it into his world. The moon, man, I'm kind of learning a lot about the moon. If you guys know, when it comes to like pot romance aspects, the moon is so important in our birth charts. And in Vedic astrology, it's the most important. But I do think personally, it's as important as the sun and ascendant. But in romantic astrology, it's the most important. But I'm starting to see how whatever moon in, you're not very stable. Because, right, the moon's always changing. And that's sort of a new side to the moon. I knew it was changeable and that it's moody. But, man, whatever sign your moon is in, that is where you're probably the most erratic, which is not really what I equate the moon with. But, I mean, it depends on the sign. Like an earthy sign or a water sign, you may be more grounded and able to go with the flow. But if you have your moon in a more spontaneous or impulsive sign, it causes a lot of upheaval for you. Oh, okay, cool, Avis. Yeah. So she was confirming what I said about it. She said, Avis says, I do get a lot of ideas and love to laugh and joke around. So I bet, yeah, you're really fun with Uranus. All right. And you're fun when you're in here with me. So I guess I could have concluded it from that. But thanks for keeping us company and following along. All right. Okay, I kind of lost my spot. And Mercury and Uranus may devote a lot of time to studying and thinking, but Saturn must build it into his world. Neptune is very different from his heavenly brother. Neptune is a god of water in myth and governs the depths of the sea. I don't know where Braden is, but now we're on to Neptune finally. He rules a realm that is ambiguous. Forms blend and dissolve, and colors merge. Water is one of the primary symbols of the world of feeling. It's also one of the most ancient images for the feminine womb out of which life emerges. The Ace of Cups in the tarot, that's, can signify a birth, especially of a woman, of a girl. Also, there was another thought I just had about the tarot with this. Cups is water. It's emotion. It has its roots in the word mare, which is the sea. This is the sea, which is the womb of life. It's the world of the emotions and the imagination. It's basically the mythology behind the mother she's saying here. Again, if you're just checking in with us, we're going over the planets and their cycles as a study. So we're kind of stopping and commenting, but we're going to get through the rest of lecture 1 today. So there's about 8 more pages left. Okay. And if you ever want a personal reading with me, it's rotation101.com. And if you're single and you're looking for your perfect astrological match, check out moonmatch.love. It's also divinetimingdatabase.org. I'm in there too. I got a guy, but I could find a better astrological match. Okay, no, we do recommend that you're kind of available, but anyway. It's about data. It's Divine Timing Database, okay? But it matches you automatically with people that you're compatible with. You can chat with them instantly, so that's pretty cool. And it's not like I think it's CoStar Pattern now has where you can look at different people and your synastry with them. It's kind of like Cafe or any other site where it's like positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Ours, it's a little more explanatory. You have no really bad negative ones. You have really good moon compatibility, and here's some things that might be challenging, so it's a little more broken up like that instead of every other synastry site you look at. It's like, oh, you guys are soulmates, and then the next aspect's description is like, you guys are going to grow to hate each other, and you're like, okay, well, I really like them, so I'll go with this now. And then you break up, you're like, I really hate them. So anyways, okay, when Uranus captures a person, it's through an idea which takes possession of him. When Neptune captures a person, it's through the world of dreams and yearnings. Neptune often manifests through what we experience as glamorous or fashionable. Yeah, I do feel like Pisces are very fashionable. Kind of like Venus ruled signs like Libra. I always say Libra dressed, but Pisces can be quite up there. And all signs have their own fashion sense. I've even seen signs that I don't associate maybe as a whole, and I see really well-dressed people. It can be any sign, you know, you have everything in your chart. So, all right, can't really tell that bottom symbol, Caleb, what you're being for Halloween. Is it the Cookie Monster? Okay. The way in which glamour access, because I said that about Pisces because Neptune rules Pisces, just in case I lost any of you. The way in which glamour affects us is very different from the impact of an idea or an ideology. Of course, they can join together. Socialism can be both a logical idea and also a glamorous fashion. But the feeling of magic and glamour is a separate thing from the feeling of truth which accompanies a powerful idea. One more second. It's like I'm at the end of the cold, so I didn't take cold medicine. Now I'm like regretting that. All right. When a style of clothing becomes fashionable, all of a sudden everyone is wearing it, and no one really knows. The style appears in every shop window and every fashion magazine, and even people who like to think of themselves as highly individual turn up in it. Designers may turn up with the same thing at the same time, and they haven't stolen the design from each other. It's more that some image or quote-unquote look is surfacing, and the more intuitive or creative person gives shape to it. Suddenly everyone has, or suddenly skirt lengths go up or down. Suits from the 1940s become de rigueur. I don't think I'm saying that one right. Stiletto heels are back in style. Science fiction films flood the cinema. Punk is the latest craze. These are Neptunian trends. They creep up on us from a feeling level. They are not ideologies. They may at first strike you as ridiculous or banal, because they seem to have so little to do with our lonely strivings towards growth and consciousness. These trends are tremendously powerful. They are responsible for vast sums of money moving back and forth in society, and they touch us on very subtle levels. The collective unconscious. I think they are more important than they seem because they are yearnings and dreams and longings that are translated into images which the consumer eagerly buys and resonates with, right? That's why they buy it. It's as if all the deep longings in the collective manifest themselves in this way, whether just movement or a fashion trend. This is where we are reaching blindly towards something divine, which embodies itself in the length of a skirt. I would also add, like I told you guys yesterday, Neptune is currently in Pisces, so everybody is in a now or a tarot reader. But, you know, in a couple years, which I actually am dreading Neptune leaving Pisces because he's conjunct my Mercury right now, and also I just love him being there, and I love every board. But in a couple years, a lot of people are, because I think he leaves in like 2026 or 2025, a lot of people are going to lose interest in astrology and tarot. I mean, there'll still be a lot of us, but it won't be so popular, you know. I mean, it'll just be a different kind of flavor. Maybe it will sort of, I've already went over that in other videos, like other lives, if you're looking for it. I'm not sure which ones right now, but transit ones we've done. Anyways, so stiletto heels are back in style. So these are Neptune. They creep up and they are not. Okay, we were at the end of that. Okay. I have been very struck by Warren Kenton's books on the Kabbalah. Okay, and this has become popular in recent years as well. And even I've only gotten into it in recent years, where he connects Neptune with the very top of the tree of life. That is very interesting. I have the tree of life with the planets in a picture frame somewhere. I moved, but I feel like it's nearby. I don't know. It's right around here somewhere. That's like I want to pull it out and be like, okay, here's Neptune at the top. But point on the tree is the ineffable, the glimpse of the divine, which is the most human being can comprehend of the mystery of the Godhead. It's called the crown, and it's the place where the sense of lonely separateness is dissolved into an experience of unity. And that makes a lot of sense because Neptune, I say, you know, ruling Pisces, sort of like the veil. So between Pisces and Aries, it's like death and life, right? We kind of have gone over that. But it's interesting. The crown is Aries. Aries is the top, the head. And so, but it's Mars ruled. And I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily put Mars up there, right? Mars is probably more down here where the Scorpio region would be, the dry dough. If you don't know what libido means, you should probably look it up, because I use it a lot, because there's certain words you can't really use on YouTube. Because my guy's like, libido, why do you always say that? It's probably because I don't want to get censored on YouTube for saying that the 3-letter word that starts with S and ends with X. I mean, I've said it here and there. I always say like Scorpio rules that, but and death is, but anyway. Okay, so it's called the crown, and it's the place where the sense of lonely separateness is dissolved into an experience of unity and bliss. When we are compelled by fashion, experiencing something that surfaces from the deepest yearnings of the heart. And I don't think that clothing, cosmetics, and visions of what is beautiful are any less valid carriers of this than religious symbols. This is very interesting, because I'm heavily involved in the beauty industry too. I'm like a licensed beautician. So it's interesting how she's tying astrology into the tree life, into politics, into Kabbalism. Okay. This is where I get all like excited and nerdy. So things emerge from a level that is not concerned with our ethics of right and wrong. They make us feel better. They take us out of ourselves. I would say, the 12th house, which is Neptune ruled, is also the house of film. The dark room is the 12th house. So also another thing takes us out of our current state of being into another realm, right? Into our imaginations and such, and connect with our emotions. So maybe she'll say that now, but Neptune is also connected with the figure of the mermaid or Melusian fairy tales. It's interesting. My really good friend, she's a Pisces, and for the longest time we thought she was a Pisces with a Virgo moon, but she's a double Pisces, she says now when she looked. But she has fairies, like little, I don't know if they're of the water, but I feel like fairies live near water when I remember them. And she has the coolest like Aries tattoo, kind of like a corset thing. So now that they're saying, that mermaids are associated with Pisces, which does make a lot of sense. I never thought that she would have those fairies, right? Fairy tales. Do you guys, how do you say it? Melusine in fairy tales, who beckons the mortal man to submerge in the magic depths of the lake or sea. In rites of baptism, these waters can purify. They can also disintegrate the personality. They are terribly enticing. So that sort of can go to like lend to the escapism of Pisces, where people can kind of slip into, substance use as well, or whatever as well, like the disintegration of the personality. They are terribly enticing because you no longer have to strive and struggle and experience separation and conflict and loss. In the depths of the sea, you merge with the source. Religion might call that a union with God, while more reductive psychologies might call it a longing to return to the maternal womb. Okay, that's kind of Freudian. So the apparently banal fashion tell us a lot about what an entire collective yearns for. Like, the younger generation, a little younger than me, wears mom jeans, and I just can't do it. I did flare jeans for a while. My aunt just gave me a bunch of clothes. She has a ridiculous amount of clothes, and they're all pretty cute. So I take them, but a bunch of them were like flared, sewing machine out, and I started making them straight legs, because and it took me forever to cross over to straight, right? And then I go over there yesterday, and she's like, "Here's a coat. Can you, it's a little big. I got it at the thrift shop." So now she's gonna give me a little cash to take it in, right? Because I was like, well, I have my sewing machine out, so I guess it'll give me a couple weeks, because I got to do it, in between everything else. But anyways, but the mom jeans thing, it's a little too young for me, even though it's a little too old for me. I don't know. And it's interesting that my mom wore those, and now the girls in their 20s wear them. They're super cute. I don't know. I can't see myself in them. So maybe I look dated in straight legs. I don't know. Anyways, although I do a pair or two of like cute high-waisted things, but my guy, he hates it. He's not into like much younger women, which is weird because he's a Libra, and most of the time I find Libras usually are into older women. He goes for women about his age. He doesn't look for younger from his history and what he says, but he's just like, I cannot get on the mom jeans train. Like anytime I wear anything high-waisted, he's like, that reminds me of that. But but the collective, especially of a certain generation, they're not Pluto and Scorpio, they're like Sagittarius, Pluto and Sagittarius. I don't know what they're, I know I've come across before. Now I want to like dig into the kids in their 20s generational planets. I know that, but I'm getting all over the place now. So, okay. Okay, where were we, guys? So we have about 5 pages left for today. And we're just going to get through lecture 1. And I'll let you all go trick-or-treating. So apparently the banal trends of fashion tell us a lot about what an entire collective yearns for. These trends are symbols. If you look at what is fashionable in this way, it's quite fascinating. It's a pictorial story of what the collective seeks and longs for. Although these longings could never be translated into worldly terms that made sense. The god who lives in the depths of the ocean spins out a dream. Neptune passes through a particular sign, and suddenly the collective reaches towards that and its symbols, because that is where the soul beckons. And it's also interesting, she brings Pisces and mermaids, or Neptune and mermaids, and in the Little Mermaid, Neptune is the father, right? King Neptune. So it's in our culture, and when we don't realize it, right? Okay, because that's astrology and symbolism. They can't make a movie about mermaids without putting Neptune in it. King Neptune, okay? Even when they made it, those actual first Disney movies, well, of course, they just remade it, but those actually came out over quite a span. So I don't know. I know The Little Mermaid was probably made in the late 80s or early, not a little before that, maybe even the early 80s. Okay, I had that whole collection when I was in VHS, but I don't know what order or years they came out in. Let's see. I'm going to ask. Because this book was 1982. This is how you research. This is Scorpio season. Scorpios love to research generally, make great PIs. What year did the Disney original Little out? 1983. No, 1989. Okay, late 80s. All right. Good to know. All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Well, yeah, you were talking to me. I just always have audio problems. Mercury square Uranus. All right, I say that a lot. When Neptune moves on into to the next sign, then the symbols go dry, and what was fashionable 15 years now seems ridiculous. So we all rush out and buy the new style. Now perhaps we can consider some of the possible meanings of Pluto. There are many curious features about this planet which make him a renegade. I'm probably going in timestamp, when we got Uranus, Neptune, and then now Pluto. He doesn't obey Pluto is kind of a renegade. And he is the ruler of Scorpio season, so obey the rules. His orbit is elliptical, and there is a phase in the orbit where he is closer to the Earth than Neptune. Although the plane of the orbit is slanted slightly and isn't aligned with the plane of the other planet's orbits, although it isn't aligned with the plane of the other planet's orbits. This phase of Pluto's orbit seems to occur when he is transiting through Scorpio. Interesting. So when Pluto is transiting through Scorpio, which is where he was when us 90s babies were born, he was closer to the Earth than Neptune. Interesting. He's the most powerful when he's in the sign of Scorpio. And that's by grand design. Can't be like, oh, let's put Pluto closer to the Earth when maybe that's why rules Scorpio. I've kind of come to this while we've just been reading this lecture, why the planets kind of got there. Uranus was discovered. This is what was going on in the collective, and this is what he's associated with. When they had that big stellium in Pisces 500 years ago in 1524, they didn't know about Neptune yet. But it was themes of Neptune, okay? And so maybe, that big Pisces stellium is why Neptune rules Pisces, and then it's like Pluto, the reason he rules Scorpio might be because he's the closest to Earth when he's Scorpio, so that they deemed him the most powerful. It's almost like you understand why the astrologists decided why these planets rule each sign is sort of an epiphany that I'm getting reading through this lecture 1. I don't know if she'll conclude with that or summarize that. So far reading into this, I've come to some conclusions about that I didn't have before. Okay, anyways, I'm very redundant sometimes. Reiterate. My guy's like, did you lock the front door? And he'll be like, yes. And I'll be like, you're sure you locked the front door? He's like, why do you always make me reiterate myself? I'm like, so finally yesterday I said, maybe it's not that I want you to reiterate. Maybe I want you to elaborate. Yes, and in it, that's what it is. I'm summoning more information in a subtle way, in a I guess, not passive aggressive, but a passive way, a passive probe. Anyways, maybe my Mercury in Pisces, I'm not direct enough. I'm being too evasive. Like, I ask better questions. All right. Although it's always mundane things, we do have Mercury square Neptune, so that can create a little bit of confusion at times and a need for it. So I think that's why I try to clarify. But actually, I didn't realize till I was just talking to you guys, maybe I should just word my questions a little more deliberately to what I'm asking rather than thinking he's just going to know. This phase of, isn't that what they say? Men and women, we always expect each other to be mind readers, especially if you have Mercury square Neptune. You expect it, but it ain't really happening. Okay. If you have Mercury trine Neptune or Venus, you might have telepathy or the moon. But anyways, okay, back to Pluto. This phase of Pluto's orbit seems to occur when he is transiting through Scorpio. Pluto will be entering Scorpio in November 1980 for around 18 years. And of course, this phase of his orbit is the passage through his own sign. So this is written in 1982. So most of us, not all of us, a lot of us, millennials anyways, we're the Pluto generation. Which is why I feel like millennial is not the right name for us, because Pluto and Scorpio we like dark things. Like, so that's especially like the late 80s babies. I just work things. We like exploring the dark, you know. So I always thought of us not really like grunge, even though that was big actually when we were little, but we like things with an edge. And so I don't know, I feel is more Uranian and it sounds too bright. I feel like maybe these, like, I don't know, the kids now, maybe like the kids that are like 20 now, like maybe they would be like that bright generation. I don't know. I feel like there are people younger than me that seem brighter, like they should be millennials, because they kind of have this spark. There is a strong Uranian influence over them, I think, but I can't recall it right now. So I just feel like it's the most bizarre thing to call the Pluto and Scorpio generation millennials. I don't know. Anyway, Dane Rudhar attaches considerable significance to the period when Pluto is closer to Neptune. And Dane Rudhar attaches considerable significance to the period when Pluto... Okay, and talks about it as a fertilizing. I decided to investigate some of the historical movements that occurred during times when Pluto moved through Scorpio and unearthed some rather interesting things. For example, Pluto went into Scorpio in the last decade of the 15th century. That time is extremely important because it marked the dawn of the Florentine Renaissance. On a cultural level, it was certainly a period of immense fertilization. True birth of lost knowledge and spiritual vision. Occult knowledge, right? That's very Scorpio. Or the water signs. The actual incidents which led to this because I say it's occult knowledge, most Scorpionic, because Scorpio rules known secrets. So it doesn't mean that everybody knows your secrets. It's the secrets known to you. So occult stuff that you know that everybody else doesn't know, or that only a small group knows, that not everybody knows. That's why I associate occult knowledge with Scorpio. All right. And then last night we were talking to our friend and he kept saying, why are you being so cryptic, so cryptic? And then my guy's like, you really like that word cryptic. And that's what my mom always says about my social media posts. You're just so cryptic. I don't even know what you're talking about. That's the Pisces and the Pluto and Scorpio in my chart. Okay. Well, and the Virgos and Gemini is very, intellectual about, even the Libra rising, about putting that all together and weaving it. All right, anyways, I am so getting distracted, you guys. And I see you popping in and out. I guess I'm just trying to sort of break up the monotony of reading. But usually you guys are a little more interactive. But let's see. We really want to get through this. It's 3:30. Wrap it up around 4. I think it's only got about 4 more pages. So, okay. So... The last time Pluto was in Scorpio before this marked the dawn of the Florentine Renaissance. On a cultural level, it was certainly a period of immense fertilization, a true rebirth of lost knowledge and spiritual vision, right? Scorpio rules rebirth, regeneration, phoenix rising from the ash. The actual incidents which led to this massive explosion of human creativity are typically Plutonian. Cosimo de' Medici, the ruler of Florence, had a taste for collecting lost manuscripts, and some of these fell into his hands after the sack of Constantinople in 1853. One of these was a strange document which was later called the Corpus Hermeticum. So they're talking about Hermeticism. I have a book I talked about. We might do one of my Joseph Campbell books about mythology. That would be a really fun one to go over with you guys too sometime. It's right over there, but there's tons of books on it. But I have one. It's the Principles of Hermeticism. So this is what they're saying they stumbled upon around the last time that was in Scorpio. Corpus Hermeticum. It was actually written in the 2nd century AD by Cosimo's translator, Marsilio Ficino, though he text more ancient even than the Bible, and spread around the idea that a great and ancient sage called Hermes Trismegistus, even though I've studied Hermes Trismegistus, I can't say his last name very well, had written it. The philosophy embedded in this text altered the thinking of the whole of Europe. Corpus Hermeticum was not Christian, and it led to a flowering of interest in the pagan gods, as well as a fascination for the Kabbalah, the tarot, and talismanic magic. So, not to sound arrogant or anything, but it's like when people come to me and they try to oh man, not when you guys come to me on my own, if you want to order personal reading for me, rotation411.com, but I do work on major platforms that I get a lot of people. So every once in a while I get one or two that think they know everything, but really they're kind of trying to project blame or their ego onto me. And I never engage with that part of them. I try to just, be humble, but it'll be well, I'm spiritual, I meditate. And I'm like, okay, well, read the law of attraction or something, just something kind of simple to start with. Cause we all start somewhere, I got that book from reading Sydney Omar's astrology books for years. They used to come out 2012, 2009, and they kept saying in my horoscope every few days, read the law of attraction. It was like a slight quiet nudge, right? Like when I tell you guys to go to moonmatch.love. Hopefully one day you'll actually go there and meet your soulmate. But anyways, so when they come to me and they're like, oh, I'm spiritual, I meditate, and it's like, okay, that's fine. You might watch TikTok and they might tell you to sage, just like I just told you to sage because you need cleansing, because I'm an empath and I could feel how energy on you and how it's distorting your vision. But if you haven't studied Kabbalah and the tarot and you weren't gifted with all of that, I mean, you could still be a medium. You could still be a palm reader. You could still be a gypsy heritage. You could still have, the thing is people are always trying to one up or be competitive in spirituality, and there's just no room for it because it's all interconnected. And you understand, they say, people can only comprehend at their own level of understanding. So if, you're spiritual and you're naturally, I still have other psychics that work on the platforms I do come to me for reading, and often they're the most in tune with me because it's everything is so universal, and that's when you really feel it the most. It's they might be a medium and see spirits, and I don't, and they kind of know the tarot, or they know the tarot, but I've the gift of astrology and the tarot from my own lineage and what's come to me in life, and it's not from direct contact necessarily, although I do have a lot of apparitions. I believe visited in my dreams by people I've known, but it's this wisdom of the Kabbalah and tarot and all of that. It's just never know it all. So I can learn from you. You can learn from me. You can write something in the comments right now that puts me in a rabbit hole for the next 3 years, So anyways, so I just get really excited about this stuff. I'm sorry, you guys. Avis, you don't have any Pisces in? Oh, a Scorpio stellium. That's powerful. Still a lot of water. My guy I'm seeing now has no water in his chart, none. And yet he still can be quite emotional, so it's we say, oh, water signs are emotional. These are just things that we're saying to kind of get to something else, So people are oh, you're stereotyping. No, because once we clear out that you're emotional, then we can go on to what that means for you and how you act, for better or worse. So him, I actually feel because he doesn't have any water in it, that he almost overcompensates or has a void there, and he seeks out people with heavy water in their charts. Or the father wound for him. His father is his parents are both water signs actually, so maybe the father-mother wound for him is that. I have a lot of Pisces and a strong Pluto and Scorpio, so he gravitated to me. So sometimes with the just you're making me think this, it's not always what we have. Sometimes it's what we lack and weak, and we can find ways to balance these things, and that's the most beautiful thing about astrology that people don't talk about a lot, is there are cures. You can cure, you can make predictions, you can cure things. So it's like everybody, not everybody, now I'm generalizing, but people that are like, oh, and kind of, I'm not sans the religious people, because that's a whole nother topic, but people are like, oh, astrology, you can't categorize everyone the same. Then I always go on the tangent of, well, 12 ascendant signs times 12 moon signs times 12 sun signs, that's 1,728 basic combinations. So only 728 people are even somewhat similar, and we haven't even gone to the houses and the planets. So if you want to check out your sun, moon, rising, check out the big 144 series. The playlist is on the channel. We're doing ends right now. Yeah, so Avis, if you have very little Earth, but you have a lot of Scorpio, then, an Earth sign might be a really good match for you, or you might find that you have a lot of strong Earth signs in your life. Or everything's a spectrum. So either you're going to have that, need it, rely on it, or you're going to find it almost repulsive and you can't stand them. But I highly doubt that, because water and earth go well together. Like if you were an air, I don't know what your sun is, Avis, I forgot. But like if you're an air sun and then you have no earth, that might be something that you need to work on, is balancing that, because it might not be comfortable for you at all to integrate earth energy, But anyway, if you're a water sign, it might be a little easier. And like he's triple masculine, moon rising, so it's not always comfortable integrating that water into his chart. And he was Pluto in Libra generation. Yeah, so with the Scorpio sun, it's a better for you integrating earth into your chart. But the thing is, especially I see this with Scorpio and Taurus, and there's other opposites that do this too. Man, you guys, Scorpio and Taurus can be like this, or they can be like just at each other's throats and like can't get rid of each other, like very codependent, or either codependent in total harmony. It's one or the other. If you find like a Scorpio and a Taurus together, I guess it will depend, do they have any malefic deal breakers and stuff too. So like if you're a Scorpio and you date a Taurus, definitely make sure that you have deal breakers, because if you do, like say you have Venus square Pluto, because Pluto rules Scorpio, Venus rules Taurus, you could get into the worst relationship of your life as far as jealousy and possessiveness. But if you have Venus trine Pluto, it could be the most harmonious. You really understand and respect each other's boundaries to an extent that no one can even penetrate. Yeah, see, I figured, but romantically, like I said, if you end up with like a Taurus and then you have Venus square in friendships, the malefic aspects can work. I tend to find, because the nice thing about friendships is you can kind of sort of take a break, like gently, and then there's sort of cycles of friendship. But relationships, you're kind of stuck with the person if you let them. So that's why moons are so important. But anyway, all right. And relationships are synergy, synastry in relationships, but there's a synergy. So it's a German philosophy, but 1 + 1 equals more than the sum of its parts. So you think, like everybody's trying to force a relationship, and I can just do a live about this because I was thinking about it in depth of how we really, in different ways, hurt ourselves by holding on to the wrong relationships. And I was just having a lot of meditative thoughts on big aspects and how we do that in different ways it plays out. I don't want to go on that because we'll never finish today. But now I just lost where I was going with that. That Pisces just drifts me off, and then Uranus is like, yes, this idea, in the square. So then I look dumb. She's a ditz. All right. Man. So I was going off about the aspects. I don't know. I totally lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me. But, in friendships, it can work. So right? Not synastry. Synergy. It's like we try to force these relationships, but it's like the divine will, which I kind of talked about yesterday. sort of feelings and thoughts on it. Not that it's true or set in stone, but the way I feel that the energy flows. Synergy, it's like we can try to make a relationship with someone, but if it's like not in the divine will or for the greatest good, there won't be any synergy. But other people, it's like we can start a relationship with them and kind of think, well, really cool, but this probably won't go anywhere. And the next thing you know, your whole lives are intertwined together and it takes on a life of its own. And it's like why people have a hard time getting divorced, because like it's like all of a sudden you can't untwine from them, you know, very easily, because everything's just, you know, taken on, it's synergy. It took on a life of its own. Now, for better or for worse. And that's why we should be much more discerning and careful. It's like those memes where they say, you know, be very careful who you choose as your life partner, because it affects every other area of your life. So it might take 6 months, 5 years. One day it's going to take on a life of its own and you're going to be stuck. So you want to make sure it's someone you really want to be stuck with. You know what I mean? Anyways, so because it's like, just in a nutshell, and this is my last thought on it, like when I see Mars in a synastry chart, it creates a real spark and attraction. So they'll be dating and I'll be like, okay, no, this is going to be very on and off, hot and cold. They'll be like, yeah, that's what it's been. I'm like, okay, but understand, even if you guys get married tomorrow, next week, next year, that's not going to go away. Once that synergy takes on a life of its own, now you've got this problem in dating you had of Mars square Uranus, where it was on and off, hot and cold, magnified times the synergy, which is more than the sum of its parts. You've got 100 times the problem. So my mom used to always say, and I do refer to this sometimes, it was like the best advice she's given me about dating, because she gives me contradictory advice sometimes, is whatever is bad in the beginning is only going to get worse. You know? Anyway, all right, back to Hermeticism. The corpus hermeticum was not Christian, and it led to a flowering of interest in the pagan gods, as well as a fascination for the Kabbalah, the tarot, and talismanic magic. It postulated that the universe was one great unified life, and that what was above was a reflection of what was below. It spoke about the reincarnation of the soul, which is something I believe in. We reincarnate into different states. I believe that we reincarnate on Earth necessarily, but that's just my theory if you want to know it. And if you have it, like our clients will come to me, do you pick up anything on past lives? It's like, I don't read past lives because I don't pick up anything on them. And I guess I was kind of conditioned not in them. But if I see the Six of Cups or something, I tell them, you know, because if they believe it, or if they tell me, if somebody tells me like a really good story about a past life or something a reader told them, I still find it intriguing. You never know, it might wake something up in me, but it just hasn't happened for me. So I don't know. That's just not the way my intuition works. But it spoke about reincarnation of the soul. So that'd be sort of the one thing I don't subscribe to in sort of the macro of and micro of this. It praised the dignity and as everything being connected, right? Interconnected. It praised the dignity and divinity of man, the great miracle who is both beast and God. This worldview we now call Hermetic or Neoplatonic. Okay, when I Googled Neoplatonic the other day when we were looking at it, I go, it sounds like Hermeticism. I think I said that. Or no, I said it sounds like occultism. That's what I said. At the time, it was an immense heresy. Its overriding injunction that the gods were found in life, in flesh, and in form as much as in heaven. A number of very important people were born under this transit of Pluto and Scorpio, as well as the main goal thrust of the Renaissance. Among these people was Martin Luther, whose impact on the religion of the time was monumental. Another was Paracelsus. I don't know if I've heard of him. Heard of his work. Let's see, what did he do? Who is sometimes considered the father of modern medicine. Okay. These people born with Pluto and Scorpio anchored the ideas which the transit brought by their life work. They transformed some of the apparently unchanging structures of society. Any Renaissance always implies the death of something in the age of the Church Fathers, and the narrowness of medieval thought came to an end when Pluto entered Scorpio at the end of the 15th century. I suppose it would be forgivable to say that this transit ended the era of medieval man. I'm just pondering it, because if it Scorpio, it was in Libra before that. Libra is the King of Swords, which I guess would be pretty masculine. Just thinking of, I'm trying to think of like, what is the archetype of the medieval man now, but add anything to that, maybe one of you will get something off of that. I think that's why it's hard for me to stay focused on the lives, aside from I told you my Mercury being in Pisces and square Uranus and all that is, and then conjunct Neptune transit right now is like being live, a bigger audience. And I told you guys I have a powerful 7th house. I'm good at one-on-one readings, but when I'm reading for the collective, my energy is just, I'm downloads, you know, just like, wait, okay. You guys are still here? All right. There was another transit of Pluto through Scorpio in 1240. This period is another time when strange philosophical ideas began to percolate through the Christian world. It was the time of the Knights Templar and of the flowering of Kabbalism to Spain. It was also the time of the troubadours and the courts of love. One sec. I had to itch my nose. Okay. This period is and then I kind of like hit it with my ring, so that felt really good. Okay. This period is sometimes called the High Medieval Renaissance, and it contains the same peculiar flowering of arcane ideas that the later Renaissance does. Alchemy was also at its height at this time. Philosophy of Ramon Lull, which once against Kabbalistic and Neoplatonic, was spreading around Europe, which was once against it. Hope she goes more into the philosophy of Ramon Lull. Just thinking though, if there's all these renaissances when Pluto was in Scorpio before, like what kind of renaissance have we been going through since 1983? I don't know. Yes, we haven't called it one. I don't know. Like, okay. And she wrote this book in 1982, so unless she's still around and picks up on this, like if she somehow picked up on this and was like, hey, let's talk about it together, I'd be like, yes, because I want to ask you, what do you think the Renaissance has been? That would be like my first question. What do you think the Renaissance has been since 1983? I don't know. I should have took that allergy cold medicine. And it's like, because you wrote this in 1982 and then Scorpio went into Pluto. So what the Renaissance for this Scorpio and Pluto generation? Maybe it's yet to be defined, you know, as maybe it's still unfolding, right? Because she's looking back hundreds and hundreds of years and it's been defined. Maybe our Pluto and Scorpio generation and their works haven't been defined yet. Because most of them are, you know, in their like 30s and early 40s now. Or not even barely, yeah, like 40. All right. Okay. This itch is driving me nuts. It's just like a tickle I'm having. So, it's like this. Maybe the spirits are tickling my nose. Don't they say like if your nose or something that, I don't know. Okay, I think there's something like that, right? I know ears ringing. Oh, and that reminds me, I just had a reading the other day where a client asked me about ears ringing. I didn't even get around to addressing that part because it was a quick mini read. Like if you order from me on rotation411.com and I just thought of that, I would like go back and write you more. Like, oh yeah, by the way, that one thing I was, okay, anyways. I can of course be accused of reading things into these two periods because I'm looking for something, but any student of Hermetic philosophy quickly discovers that it has a cyclical life. It erupts into the collective for a brief time, and then its adherents are persecuted and it goes underground, only to erupt again around 250 years later. That is of course a cycle of Pluto. Therefore, we discover later that the transit of Pluto through Scorpio during the 18th century, around 1750 to be precise, coincided with the rise of Freemasonry and with the birth of Franz Mesmer, who incorporated the Hermetic worldview into a scientific exploring the human psyche, which eventually fathered modern psychology. I am becoming convinced that Pluto is concerned with a certain vision of the universe, which is basically Hermetic and which has the tendency to surface when the supporting structures of society begin to break apart. Man has always explained his reality in physical terms and has built his social structures in an extroverted way. Something seems to happen when Pluto enters his own sign that concerns cracks in the wall of the extroverted worldview. It is as though there is something which we loosely call quote-unquote lost knowledge, occult knowledge, I add, which is really knowledge of the universe that comes from a different place than the senses and their perception. This is quote-unquote lost knowledge. This quote-unquote lost knowledge suddenly surfaces wearing a new costume when Pluto moves into his own sign. The fact that Pluto is soon to move into Scorpio once again, she wrote this in 1982, so she's talking about when he moved into Scorpio in 1983, has of course raised questions in my mind. If I have really found some kind of pattern in Pluto's transits through history, then the ancient Hermetic worldview ought to be on the horizon now, just getting ready to make itself felt again. Definitely happened for me in the last however long I've been alive. Pluto and Scorpio, I came across the Hermetic wisdom. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going to put a little soda in here. It's been an hour. It's been over an hour, so I need a quick little treat to keep me going. So I'm going to stick it out. So I want to knock it out today so we can get to lecture 2. And it's Friday. It's Thursday, but it's Halloween. So I'll probably wait until Monday to start lecture 2. We'll see if I can hop on tomorrow and do it, but like and subscribe if you want to be notified when we're going to hop on and start lecture of this book, The Outer Planets and Their Cycles. The fact that Pluto is soon to move in Scorpio once again. Okay. The ancient Hermetic worldview to be on the horizon now, just getting ready to make itself felt again. Of course, I can see its tracks in Jung's psychology, which is in the end built upon the same worldview, grapple with the terms like quote-unquote collective unconscious and quote-unquote synchronicity and quote-unquote archetype. Jung's psychological vision of life, which he tried to anchor firmly in observation and empiric research, in the end cut of the same cloth as Corpus Hermeticum. I am also inclined to look at the recent flowing, because there's nothing that has ever, there really is never any new thought, right? It kind of goes into physics, like no be created or destroyed. So everything has already been thought. You know, all we can really do is reinvent the wheel and paint it slightly differently. I'm also, again, because everything is interconnected. So I'm also inclined to look at the flowering of astrology and its allies, the tarot and the I Ching, as another sign of the same thing. And the I Ching is so mysterious to me. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. I definitely don't think that I would be able to do readings on, but it's something I've wanted to learn more about. But it's not something that's come to me the way the tarot and astrology have. But anyway, as another sign, or even Vedic astrology, astrology also seems to have a cyclical flower. It's not surprising it trots alongside Hermetic philosophy, because it's one of the best vehicles for the vision of what is above being like what is below, or, the macro and the micro. I don't think that I added that part. I don't think that this is really philosophy, in the sense that Uranus is tied to conceptual visions of the universe. This is some kind of profound of the nature of life itself, which has been articulated in some very funny language each time Pluto goes through Scorpio. It's as though this profound sense of all the religious dogmas and political visions and penetrates to the very core of man's soul, which is my favorite thing about Scorpio, as I tell you guys all the time. They know the truth. They can see the truth right away. They cut through the BS. So, like with Scorpio, it's like, okay, yes, dogma, that's nice. Anyways, here's what it really means. Okay. It's also a perennial philosophy or worldview, and it has pieces over and over again, only to rise once more in new clothing, right? Painting a new way. These movements, which I am calling Plutonian, seem to attract a good deal of anger and persecution from collective authority. But they keep coming back again and again. There's a common root behind Masonry and Lollism and Neoplatonism and Hermeticism and depth psychology, although I am sure a lot of people would get very angry when we make those connections. I don't think people nowadays would care, but maybe in the early 80s would. I don't know what's going on. Okay. But we're 3 pages away, so we're going to keep going. Pluto is the great timekeeper of the collective. We'll see where she goes with that, because I always say Saturn is the father of time, but I guess Pluto keeps the time. All these little individual mountain peaks have gone a while happily thinking they've solved all the questions and mysteries of life. And they've built a society according to one model or another, and now they know all about the nature of God and man. Then along comes Pluto, and something is revealed which holds incredible and blows apart that very complacent set of values. Pluto heralds the death of religions and cosmologies and offers the same intense vision to replace them each time. I'm sure you'll have worked out by now that the individuals who are going to be sensitive to these things are those who have Saturn and Pluto in strong aspect in their birth chart. Just as Saturn-Uranus people hear the voice of the new idea, and Saturn-Neptune people smell the scent of the new mystical vision. If I have, oh my, mine, I'm at best might have a semi-sextile between Saturn and Pluto. But anyway, the new idea in Saturn Neptune people of the new mystical vision. I see that some of you are laughing at this as though it makes sense to you. I think Saturn Pluto conjunctions, because this was a lecture that she did live in England, so I guess the audience was laughing. Pluto conjunctions glimpse the approaching death of society's gods and the gradual reemergence of that ancient vision of life. So remember, we had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020. I suspect that some Saturn-Pluto people help that song by playing the role of saboteur. I like to do that now. While others immerse themselves in the perennial philosophy. Okay, maybe that too. But these people are buffeted most strongly because they must embody Pluto in some way in their lives. Yes, okay. So now we go to the audience questions, and there's just 2 of them. This lecture is done. Audience, how did these planets come to be named? See, and that's what I just told you guys. I haven't read this. I was thinking, gosh, well, I said it kind of makes sense. Certain planets rule certain signs, right? So, okay, it says, that's a very curious thing. The man who discovered Uranus called it after himself, and for a while the planet was known as Herschel. That's really an offense against aesthetic taste. After Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Mercury comes Herschel. I don't know why it's eventually called Uranus, but somehow the name and the meaning of the planet are synchronous. Also a curious synchronicity between the time when the planet is discovered and the emergence in society of values and experiences which the planet represents symbolically. It's as though the planet breaks upon consciousness in both a literal and a symbolic way. I can't really answer you as to why Uranus is called Uranus and Neptune. I can only say that in some mysterious fashion, they get the right names. Audience, what about Pluto? Liz, well, the story is that it was named for Mickey Mouse's dog because Percival Lowell, remember, we didn't even discover Pluto until I think the 1940s. But because of the ephemeris and calculations, we don't need to look in the sky and see him with a telescope. We can calculate where he was back hundreds and thousands of years. But that chart I looked at yesterday from 1524, it was called, it had some abbreviation like SO, so I'm not quite sure what that means. But anyway, because Lowell, who discovered the planet, had a daughter who was very attached to this dog called Pluto. I think I've heard this before. I think it's an apocryphal story, but it's as good as any other. I'm not saying that word right. I know how it sounds. Okay. Probably Pluto is called Pluto because it's so far out in the dark depths of space. Since all the other planets bear mythological names, Pluto would be the obvious name for a planet so and mysterious. So maybe Greek roots, right? We project our myth fantasies onto the cosmos. Oh, so kind of like Plato maybe? Was it Plato's cave? Where they project in the cave on the wall? Plato. So there might be some root to that. Let me know if you're good at that kind of thing. Thank you, Avis. Okay, so since all the other logical names, Pluto would be the obvious name for a planet so hidden and mysterious. We project our mythic fantasies onto the cosmos. The same thing could be argued about the 7 planets known to ancient astronomers. Mercury is called Mercury because he's the tiniest of the planets. Mars is red and therefore called Mars because that's the god of war and blood. Oh, I knew that. I think there is justification for suggesting that we project our images onto physical planets because they carry physical features which connect with the fantasies. It doesn't explain why the solar system should so agreeably provide a hook for those projections. Pluto might have been named because someone thought the ancient god of the underworld would be a fitting figure for a planet hidden in the underworld of space. Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't it come from Greek mythology? Greek roots. Okay. But Pluto also behaves like the god of the underworld. In fact, I can offer no answer because that would be Kronos. But I feel like Jupiter and Pluto, So I guess it was Uranus. They killed Saturn. Jupiter and Pluto were in the belly of Saturn, Kronos, who was the son of Uranus. So anyway, okay. And for that I can offer no answer. The name is synchronous. Probably there is some deep law at work, but I could not possibly offer a rational explanation to a science. The values and visions which belong to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were of course around long before the planets were discovered. They have always been with us. There are people in history these values and visions, like Paracelsus, who had the Sun conjunct Pluto in Scorpio. I don't think there is any difference between a modern individual with strong outer planet contacts, who is in touch with the movements in the collective, and an individual who has these same contacts and who is also their mouthpiece. So kind of what I was saying yesterday, like if there really isn't a big difference if people have aspects and are born in different countries with different backgrounds, just the same, it doesn't matter whether you lived in 1000 BC or now, you're gonna, if you have a similar birth chart, if you met that person, if you could space travel really similar to you, even living in a completely different environment and society. Anyway. But there was no collective conception of what these planets were for the time of their discovery. They couldn't be anchored in external life. They were probably discovered when their time was ripe. I am inclined to revert to a more archaic way of looking at things, and tend to see the planets as something alive and numinous. They were once called gods, and if you prefer the term archetype, it doesn't lessen their mysterious power in any way. I don't see why we shouldn't see the planets as evolving and changing in the same way that other life forms evolve and change. Perhaps when it's time to be embodied in the world, they're discovered by somebody's telescope. That, at any rate, is my fantasy about it, which kind of goes into the observer effect, right? Which I believe was Einstein, like by observing things we change. It's like we might have been influenced by Neptune before we saw him, like during that stellium in 1524 when they didn't know about him, or Pluto up until 1940 in these other Renaissance eras when they didn't know about Pluto. But once we could see Pluto or see Neptune, now we have a lot more ability to adapt and harness their energies, right? Anyways, audience, does that mean that things may happen in the collective unconscious when lived out in the world? That'd be like dream state, right? Like, what was that horror movie watching a couple weeks ago? Like Insidious, I believe. You know, they go in the dream state. Okay, that was pretty cool. Well, it's a scary state, but it's, you know, it kind of explains it. Liz, I suppose you could say that. I think things happen in an individual's dreams which can't be lived out in his life often for many years, if ever. If a child of five, like a 5-year-old child, I believe is what she's saying, dreams of meeting a magical androgynous figure with bird claws and wings who can make gold out of mud, he isn't going to be able to do very much except tell a strange dream. And then when he hits 40 and studies alchemy, he'll go, oh, maybe I can make gold out of mud. Okay, all right. That may represent a potential which he gets a glimpse of when he's 70 and many miles. Well, there you go. I said 40, she said 70. I'm sure the same applies to the collective. One individual who glimpses a potential vision for society may be very fired up by it during his lifetime. But everyone just laughs at him because it will take another 500 before the collective can do anything with it. It's kind of how it feels trying to match you guys based on synastry so I don't have to match you after the fact. So I'm like, come on, when I was like trying to figure out how to get it, build the divine timing database, everybody's like, yeah, you should Astrology Dating App. Yes. And then I built it and everyone's like, meh. You know, there's quite a few of you in there now, but I feel like there should be a lot more, you know. Anyway, if you want to join the divinediamonddatabase.com, you can go to moonmatch.love to get there quick. All the links are below. Use coupon code rotation411 for a discount. Anyways, the eruption or change may affect people, but it can't yet affect society because society isn't ready for it. So it goes aground for another cycle. This has always been the role of the prophet and the artist. The prophet can sense these potentials. He can read the dreams of the collective which are sent by the gods, and he paints the painting which is really the voice of the collective reaching out for its dreams. I mentioned Yeats earlier, and there are countless others, individual voices who sense the future unfolding. But usually these people don't make much impact during their time. I said that a lot. Like the first part, lecture part 1 and 2, I kept saying, yeah, postmortem, postmortem. You get all your credit postmortem, right? Okay, so I'm on like the last few sentences here, but I just lost my thought. But usually these people don't make much impact during their time. They are seen as curious, and it's generally long after they're dead that anyone recognizes the truth of their vision. If you have come into personal contact with such people, then you may be profoundly affected, and your life may be changed. But society as a whole may stop giving the person's work value after 200 years, claiming that this was a poet. They recognize it only after the poet's vision has already surfaced and become something recognizable by the mass of people. And that henceforth too, or something like she said, is the end of lecture 1. So I don't know. What do you guys let me know in the comments of the playback. Should I try to tomorrow and start lecture 2? I don't know that I'll be able to get on over the weekend, but you never know. Or should I wait until Monday? Maybe we could get halfway through lecture 2 tomorrow. I think it'll go a little quicker as I'm sort of just getting, well, we'll see. I think today I'm a little tired, so that's why I'm like more probably distracting to you guys. But I do feel like it breaks up me just reading it verbatim, which I've already said several times too. So when I'm sleepy, I just kind of repeat myself to stay awake. So I might have to take a break for the weekend so we're fresh on Monday. But if I decide to pop on tomorrow and start lecture 2, we definitely probably won't get through it. Join us Monday. We'll probably be on part 2. You can catch up with us then. Happy Halloween to all of you who celebrate. Happy Samhain. Happy Day of the Dead. Feliz Dias de los Muertos. I think I said that right, I hope. Which is tomorrow, I believe, for most of you. Anyways, is there any questions you guys have if you're still in here? I don't see anything. So if you want a personal reading from me over the weekend, you can go to rotation411.com. There's several different types. You can like put in a reading where a mini reading where you ask me the question. You can send me a video, respond with a quick video. And I actually cover a lot in those like mini tarot readings and mini astrology readings. But you can also book and schedule with me, a phone call with me, a FaceTime with me. So there's tons of different options on there. Check it out. And then there's the astrology packages and the romance packages. And that's where I'll like pull up your birth chart and go in depth and like sit there and tell you, okay, you can break it. You can go over it however long it takes you, but it's like your first house is in this sign and this is what it means. Okay. You have this planet there and this is what that means. And it's kind of like very thoroughly going over your birth chart is what the birth chart package. And I recommend, even if you don't get it from me, everyone does that in this lifetime because it was life-changing for me when I had mine done. And I already knew a lot about astrology, but when I had mine done in I think it was 2017 or 2018, it was life-changing to have and do my birth chart. So, definitely check out the natal package on Rotation 1. If you kind of just researched your chart, but you haven't ever had another astrologist do it for you, again, it doesn't have to be me. I'm just telling you where you can go. Definitely do it for you. And I would say do it in this lifetime, but I would say sooner rather than later, especially with Tunes and Pisces. You might get a lot more insight out of it. But anyways, all right. And now's the time to get a tarot reading from me while Neptune is conjunct my Mercury in Pisces. Probably, anyways, I'm like going, I hope this intuition that I'm honing, I hope that carries through and it's not just heightened over this period, But anyways, I've had it my whole life, but over the years, it's really come to fruition. That's why I do tarot readings for a living and everything. I never would have predicted and was never really striving for. I just came into it. So anyways, I'm sending you guys lots of love, blessings, abundance, and light. Happy Halloween. Bye.